just won't happen. So thanks, but no, I think I'm good to go. Cause I quite enjoy the life you say I'm trapped in. Now I admire you, and that will show you do. You're onto something, really it's something. I live among the swells, we don't get peanut sugar. I'll have to leave that up to you. Don't you know that I will be with you?
Say hi. Alright, Dad's in town. We're officially on baby watch. Still pregnant.
Whiskey, misery, and parties and play. If I were mixed up with you, I'd be the talk of the town. Disgraced and disowned, another one of the clown. And you would finally live, finally laugh for me. Just let me give you freedom.
We're going to talk about how this relates to team building.
Take your walls and start them breaking. Now that's a deal that seems worth taking. But I guess I'll leave that up to you.
All right.
Well, it's intriguing, but to go would cost me greatly. So what percentage of the show would I be taking? Fair enough, you'd want a piece of all the action. I'd give you 7, we could shake and make it happen. I wasn't born this morning, 18 would be just fine. Why not just go ahead and ask for big old on the dime? 15, I debate, 12, maybe not.
Don't you wanna get away to a whole
new what you gonna bring? Cause I got what you need, so come with me and take the ride. Take you to the other side. So if you do like I do, so if you do like me, forget the keys, cause we know how to place the key. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna be free to fly. We're going to the other side. To the other side. To the other side. To the other side.
going to the other side. All right, so you're like wondering, what the heck does this have to do anything with team building? Well, it's so funny because just a couple weeks ago, when Christine was in town, we watched The Greatest Showman that night after my baby shower, and you know, so much. I love the movie, and you know, the music is just phenomenal. But you know, when we heard that song, all we could think about was how it related so much to what we do in recruiting and when we're trying to recruit a woman for the business. And so I want to talk a little bit about that because we're talking today specifically about how we do interviews. And the interview is a huge part of team building. In fact, I would say that taking an interview at your potential team member is probably the most important thing that you can do to really solidify and build a strong team. And the reason why is because an interview allows you to get to know her, to get to know what's important to her, to sell your side of the story, but also to listen to what she has to say, to overcome her objections. And so for those of you that have seen The Greatest Showman, this scene in the movie, Hugh Jackman, who plays the role of P.T. Barnum, is recruiting Zac Efron, who is from a big, you know, he's from like a noble family. He does theater, all this stuff. And he wants to recruit him to come to the other side, to come to the circus side. And so he makes his case. And he basically puts the offer out on the table, and he's like telling him, I'm not going to chase you. I know you can see it. I know you can picture what it would be like. I know that you would enjoy it. I know that it's different, right? It's different from what you've lived like. It's crazy. It's, you know, it doesn't make sense. It's not sensible. But I can also tell that you want to get away. You want to get away from that same old part I'm reading that you've got to play, right? And he tells him, I have what you need, so come with me and take the ride. I'll take you to the other side. And so much of what we do in the interview is about showing the woman that's across the table from us how what we have can take her to the other side. in Mary Kay. And, just like Zac Efron's character in the scene, he's like, listen, I'm not interested. I love my life. Everything's great. Things are wonderful. But the more that The Greatest Showman speaks, that Hugh Jackman speaks, he starts thinking to himself, okay, all right, well, maybe this could be good. And then he starts the negotiations. And ultimately, that is what an interview is. An interview is both sides, right? Negotiating and just putting things on the table. And so I love interviews because it's how I built my business. I learned how to do interviews really early on. And lucky for you, I took a lot of the information that was given to me. I was given like this 7-page interview script. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to memorize this? And I remember the first interview I did, she didn't sign up, but you know what she told me at the end? She said, I never knew this much about Mary Kay. I respect this company so much now, and I respect you so much that I will always be a client of Mary Kay's. I'll remain loyal to the brand. And let me tell you, to this day, she is. She's still a loyal client. And she was my first interview, and she said no. And so what I want to start off by saying is that I'm not, not everyone that you do an interview with will say yes to the opportunity. And that is okay. Our job is to offer a glimpse at the other side. It's not to guarantee that they're going to take it. It's not to make them say yes. It's to make the offer, to share the information, and to provide them with a place where they can ask questions, and to be open to something more. So I want to show you what we're going to be looking at tonight, because I think it's really important. And then I want to this is going to be like all of our other weeks. It's going to be interactive. And so we're going to be taking a look right now at our interview agenda. So give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Can you see it? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. So this is, I created this a little while back for our team, and it merges together something that Sean Key, who is from our corporate office, he created this interview agenda. And then I also merged it with kind of what we do as part of the Driven National Area and what I have found really works. Something I want to draw your attention to is on the second page is the DISC for team builders. And so it talks about DISC. For those of you that have been a part of my unit for a while, you know that I am very, very much just in tune, and also just a huge proponent of behavioral styles and personalities, and helping to work with people based on their style. And so this is kind of a little glimpse. And this helps you when you are with someone at an interview. It helps you kind of decipher and figure out what style might she be. And based on her style, you can better communicate with her. It's not about putting somebody in a box. It's about being able to receive them and meet them where they are at. Okay. And so one of the first things I do is I try to decipher her personality before I even get to the interview. But if you don't have a lot of practice with this, there's a couple things that you can do. Especially when they respond to the first statement, you can pretty much decipher what personality she is based on her answer to the first question. Okay. And so this gives you some great tips for things to focus on based on someone's personality. So let's go ahead and go through this, because the interview, there's a couple things. So we call it an interview, right? But it's really an interview into her. So when you are at the interview, by the way, before you even get there, we always want to send some kind of a confirmation. And there's an email that you can send that I have a template to, that also includes different marketing videos. So it's videos from various nationals and top directors about their iStory. And I like to match the story that I send them with their personality. And so that means that you have to do a little bit of research yourself before you do that, but it really will help you prepare for a more fruitful interview. The other thing is, I will tell you, I always pray before interviews, just for the person on the other end to have an open mind and an open heart to what I'm saying, to be able to receive truly what it is that I'm sharing. And so I take this with me. I have it in front of me. In addition to that, I always have at my interviews a recruiting packet. What is in that recruiting packet? A lot of times I have in there a team building flyer. I have in there an agreement for sure, paper agreements. Super you guys, they're 50 cents for 10 on Mary Kay in Touch. When you do your next order, put in 20 agreements so you never run out of them, okay? And I always put an agreement in there, a team building flyer. I will put some kind of a survey, so either the Michael Kors Purse survey, or you can do a $100 question, whichever you prefer. And then I always want to include in there as well my interview sheet, and that's for me. And I tell her, listen, I'm going to be taking notes because I want to be able to write down your questions so that I can listen to everything you're saying and then answer. Okay? And then you can figure out, like, if for you there is something else. Oh, I like to put a picture of the contents of the $100 starter kit because I think that that's really important. And then also a Steps to Success brochure, which you can also purchase on section 2 of on In Touch. And that is basically just to show her, you know, what it is that Mary Kay has to offer. Okay. And so I will start off and I will write out her name and her email address. I'll have her phone number. I'll include the date. And I've gone back to many of these interviews, and I will say I can trace back, I will layer people as well. You can just have like a file folder with all of your interview agendas filled out, okay? And I tell her, I go, so let me just, I'm going to break down like why we're here. First of all, thank you so much for your support. So I start off with that. Thank you so much for your support. I'm so grateful. This is truly a part of my training. It's not even just a part of my training. This is what Mary Kay Ash asked of us. And also I need to do this to be able to rise to new promotion levels in my business. And so you being here means a lot. Okay, I'm going to just start with that. The second thing is we are here because you did express some form of interest in starting a Mary Kay business, or you expressed, questions that you wanted to explore. And that's not to say that you're going to do this. It's not to say that you won't do this. This is just an opportunity for us to talk, for you to get to know me better, for me to get to know you better. And it's an opportunity for you to get to know the company better and to really decide, like, is this something I would want to do? And then I go ahead and I state to them. So, when the last time we spoke, your level of interest you put was a 6. Okay. And so at the end of this, we're going to figure out like what your level of interest is after our conversation. And, to decide whether or not this is something you can see yourself doing. I will tell you at the end of this, you will have a very clear picture of what Mary Kay is all about. Okay. And I also believe that women, we need to make decisions because indecision is a decision in and of itself. And so I want to help give you the information you need to make a decision. Okay. And so I set the record straight from the very beginning, sharing with her what it is that we are there to do. And so that introduction is all you need. You don't want to dance around an issue because I think a lot of times new consultants, when they go to an interview, they don't want to feel like they're pressuring. That's the one P word. Okay, we're going to talk about P words tonight. Pressure. I don't want to pressure her. I don't want her to feel like I'm pushing. That's another P word. Something on her. Well, guess what? She's there in front of you. She would not be there in front of you if there was not some level of interest. She may not say it to you, but she would not have agreed to do this, have driven to meet you for coffee, and be sitting across from you if there was not some level of interest. So number 1, you are not being pushy and you are not pressuring her. What you are doing is you're being open with her and sharing with her why you're there. You don't want to waste her time, and she doesn't want to waste your time either. Okay? So then I go ahead and I tell her, I'm just going to ask you some questions. I want to get to know you better. So tell me a little bit more about yourself. Okay? And that is the first question. And like I mentioned, the answer to that first question usually reveals a lot of what we need to know about that person. Okay? And so, what does she mention first? What does she mention first? That's going to tell me what's most important to her. Okay? During this time, I am listening. I'm listening to what she's saying, and I am thinking of 2 or 3 questions that I can ask to dig deeper. Those questions, I will tell you, are different based on who I'm talking to. Okay? Because I want to really listen to what she's saying. I don't want to just have prepared questions for everything. I want to listen to what she's saying, and I want to be able to, dig deeper. What are some examples of things I might ask, though? Okay, it might sound something like this. So what's something you would love to have more of in your life? That's a really good question. What's something you would love to have more of in your life? Because she may be really happy with her life. She may be super happy with her job. She may be super excited to wake up every day. But let me tell you, there is something that she needs or wants more of. We all do. And so what are some things that someone might say they want more of, Rochelle?
Flexibility with their schedule.
Yes. That's a big one that I hear. Flexibility. What's one other thing that she might be looking for more of?
More money.
More income. What about you, Quinn? What is something that you think people might say to that they're looking for more of?
Just time.
Time. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Shannon, what is something that you think people might say they're looking for more of?
More flexibility.
Flexibility. Absolutely. That is a big one, you guys, that we get in Mary Kay. People are looking for more flexibility, and they're looking for more time. You'll get that thing of, I'm looking for more income. Jasmine, what's something that you have heard that people are looking for more of?
So since our area is very transient, I'm sorry, Tim is talking behind me. Sometimes they're looking for more girlfriends and just an avenue to meet new people, because it's really hard to do that sometimes when you're older and you're in an area that you're not familiar with.
I'm so happy you mentioned that, because a lot of times people will say something as simple as like, I'm just looking to meet new friends. I'm looking for new girlfriends. I'm looking for a more positive environment. They will say those things. And so what you need to be looking out for is, what is it that she's looking for more of? Because in Mary Kay, we have everything. I truly believe that every woman should spend a minimum of a year of her life in Mary Kay. I mean, that's just what I believe every woman should join Mary Kay, okay, for something, because I believe that we have something here for everybody. And so because I believe that question is super important to me, because whatever she tells me that she needs more of, I can pretty much guarantee, unless she tells me something really weird, like drugs or something, I don't know. I'm joking. I can guarantee that we have that in Mary Kay. And so that is a powerful question. What are you in need of more of in your life? And, what brings you joy? What brings you joy is a really great question, especially for I's and S's. A great question for I's and S's. Something that I think is really important to do too is, so when you're listening to somebody and you're really truly hearing what they're saying, I like to say something like, okay, so you mentioned blank. Tell me a little bit more about that. I want to pull out and listen to those like almost like nonverbal cues. Like you can say, okay, all right. So Susie, you mentioned that you've kind of stagnated at your job over the last 5 years. Tell me more about that. I want to pull out the things that I can see are sore spots. Why? Because those will tell me what other needs she has in her life. For example, this happened to me recently, somebody who hasn't had a promotion or in their career in the last 5 years, I asked her, I said, okay, so you mentioned this that like really piqued my interest. Tell me more about that. And she said, well, I mean, there's just no room for growth where I'm at. She said, literally, there's no room for growth. The person that's been there ahead of me, that's in the position above me, has been there for 11 years. Like, she's not going anywhere. There's just nowhere for me to go. That's a really frustrating place to be. And so, and I asked her, I said, does that bother you? What, would you like the ability, like, to have upward mobility? And she said, of course, who wouldn't? Which is true. And so I knew that talking about the career path in Mary Kay would be powerful to her, because you can surpass your recruiter at any time. You can give yourself a promotion at any point. You decide the speed at which you move. Those were all things that I knew would be important to her based on that thing that she shared. Does that make sense? And so this first part here is like really where I spend the most of my time. I like to keep my interviews to like 30 to 45 minutes. And so, because, sometimes they'll last an hour, but you want to leave time so that you can actually close someone. And so, but that first part there is going to take me 15 minutes at least. Like, I just want to talk to her and get to know her, and I want to know. And then I will say something like, okay, so let's get into the part about the business. Tell me about what stuck out to you, or what you remembered about what I shared with you. So from what we talked about before, what you saw in my presentation, what stuck out to you, or what do you remember from what I shared? And I want to know what's like the thing that she says is going to also tell me a lot about her personality, but it's also going to allow me to know what she heard. Okay, so usually if somebody says, well, I was super impressed that you can earn a car. Okay, well, then that's going to tell me that that's something that's important to her. Okay, or, it really stuck out to me that XYZ. So what are I want to know what is it that she remembers. And then I can fill in the gaps. Okay, I'll say, oh, absolutely. And, what else do you remember that I shared with you? And I just keep asking, what else? What else stuck out to you? What else? Until she says, oh, I can't remember anything else. And then I may fill in, if she doesn't, remember maybe some of the key points, I'll fill in the gaps. Like, we make 50% commission, just kind of how some of those things work. And then, this next question is important to me too, because I want to get her focusing on what is positive, what is good. And so what impressed you the most about what you heard? What impressed you the most about what you heard, and why would you be great at this? And just so you know, these next questions are taking up the next amount of time, okay? I want to get to this quickly because, the facts and the figures aren't that important, but really why she feels like she would be good at this is important, okay? And so then at this point, usually somebody will present an objection. It's just what happens. And so then I can overcome any objections. We talked about the most common objections. Then I can overcome any objections that she may have based on what she shares in that moment. And then basically the rest of your time is just overcoming those objections, overcoming her objections of time, overcoming her objections of not having the income to start, overcoming, I don't know anybody. All of those things that we talked about, you can overcome those objections right then and there. And then somebody shared this with me once, and it was such a really poignant visual. So I want you to imagine taking that objection, you overcome it, And then you grab that and you move it to the side, okay? Like a salt shaker. And you say, okay, all right, Susie. So imagine that you have all the time. So, I've showed you now how you can make the time for this, how you can sprinkle this into your schedule. So tell me, now we figured out you do have the time to fit this in. So imagine now you have that time, you have your husband's support, you have enough resources. I've trained you and taught you everything you need to know on how to meet new people. Is there any reason that we can't get you started today? And this is the key to every interview. And this is what I want to, we're going to wrap up, with this point. Everybody needs to be closed. And number one, it's a courtesy. And number two, people are there because they know you're going to ask them a yes or no question. They are waiting for you to ask them. So when you go to an interview and you do not ask them, you lose footing with them. You, in many respects, lose their respect. They are waiting for you to ask them. And so when you don't, they're like, why am I here? I thought she wanted me on her team. I'll give you a great example, and it has nothing to do with Mary Kay. I remember when I first started doing fundraising, and fundraising is a form of sales, right? I called my dad, and I was so nervous. This was like the first real fundraising meeting I was taking on my own. And, he asked me, he told me, he goes, whatever you do at the very end, you have to ask for the sale. He's meeting with you because he knows that you're asking him for money. So if you don't ask for money, you're losing your chance. That's it. You're going to lose his respect. So I went to this lunch. We went through the whole spiel. I was there for an hour, talked about the programs. And then at the very end, I lost my nerve and I did not ask for the sale. Okay. I didn't ask. All it was like $5,000. That's it. And I didn't. I walked away. I said, okay. He picked up the tab and I said, okay, well, I guess I'll follow up with you about all this information. It took me another 2 years to close that person. Okay. Because honestly, he was busy and it took me 3 months to set up that appointment to begin with. And he went there thinking I was going to ask him for money. I did not. And it took me another 2 years to get money from that company because I didn't ask for the sale that day. And so I learned it was not, it was maybe not a ton of money at the time, but I learned an expensive lesson. And that is that everybody wants to be closed. Everybody wants to be asked. And so know this. She is there because at some level she is curious. And so when you don't ask her, she wonders why you didn't. And so that question is huge. Is there any reason we can't get you started today? Any reason we can't get you started today? Mari, is there any reason that we can't get you started today? And she's going to say one of two things. She's going to say yes, or she's going to say no. And if she says no, there's no reason, honestly. I can't imagine there's no other reason. Then that's it. You pull out your agreement from your little pocket and you put it in front of her and you sign it. And you say, awesome, let me walk you through this. And we're writing her name and we're walking her through it, piece by piece. Okay? So she knows from the very beginning, the very first moment, I'm walking her through this. She is not alone. Even filling out a paper agreement. She knows her name, but that's okay. I'm going to walk her through every step. And then the other answer she can say is, yes, actually, there is a reason. I'm just not sure. And then this is really where the other objections will come up. And I will then overcome her other objections. At the end of the day, a lot of times what holds people back is fear. fear of the unknown, fear of failure, they're overthinking things too much. And if she's someone who, I feel like that's what it is, I will say to her, listen, Mari, I really feel like at this point, the only thing that's holding you back is fear. We've already talked about how you'll find the time. We've talked about how you have the network. We've talked about how you love the product. It's fear. Fear is holding you back. Is it fair to say that? And she might say yes, or she might say no, and she might still say, listen, I just need to think about it. I just need to think about it. And I said, okay, so you were a 6 when you walked in here today. That was your level of interest. What would you say is your level of interest now? And she might say, you know what? Now it's an 8. Awesome. And then my last question to her is, what would take you to a 10? What would take you to a 10? And I listen to what she says. And she might say, well, I just need more information. And maybe she just needs more information because she's a C. Or she might say, I just need to sleep on it. Or I need to talk to my mother. And then at that point, I need to talk to my husband. Whatever she says at that point, my next point to her is, okay. And I say to her, she says, I need to talk to someone. I say, okay, well, what do you think that person would say to you? And my goal is to arrange a time for that person to talk to me as well. If that person's of so much influence in her life, I want to be able to answer questions because she's not going to know how to answer questions to that person. And so really being able to take control of that situation. And so I always follow up with somebody. I say, you know what? I'll tell you what. Most people in the first 24 hours, they know what they're going to do. And so it's okay. Either way, no matter what your response is, I'm going to give you a call in 24 hours. I'm going to be a woman of my word, and I'm going to follow up with you then. And I would just love to know what you're thinking. And so what would be a good time? And I just set a time to follow up with her in 24 hours. And if more information is what she needed, then I'm giving her that packet to look at with information. And then we go from there. Okay. But I will tell you, and a lot of times in interviews, you're going to get that yes or no answer, which is the best feeling in the world, because the worst thing is the unknown. It's the not knowing. It's the indecision. And so really that's what I love about interviews. Okay. So I know you have questions. So I want to know a question from each of you. So what would be your question? Let's start with Rochelle. Rochelle, what would be your question? You're first on my list here. That's why I'm picking on you. What would be your question?
About anything?
Yeah, in terms of the interview.
I had one. I guess the first one that comes to mind is, what do you do if you have someone that's, open? They may have been a 1, but they're willing to help you, as part of your training, that thing. But let's say they're sketchy with when to schedule the interview. Because I know typically you want to do it within 24 to 48 hours after your party. So how do you kind of I guess, get them to agree sooner rather than later?
So I tell them, listen, it only counts for me if we do it in the next 2 days.
Okay.
Or if we do it in the next 3 days. And now, because of Zoom, I will, I'd rather schedule a Zoom interview than wait a week. So to me, if you're having a hard time figuring out an in-person time, tell her, okay, let's do FaceTime. You get your cup of coffee or tea, and I'll have my cup of coffee or tea, and let's do it. And then actually what's really good about Zoom is that you can record it. Mm-hmm. And you can watch yourself after. And so she's a 1 in level of interest, say, listen, I know that you're not necessarily super interested in the business, but which she may or she may not be, by the way. I know a lot of 1s who've signed up. But you can say, I know you may not be super interested in the business, but I know you really want to support me. And I have this huge deadline. I have to get this done by Friday. And so when before Friday can we talk? It's the same thing as booking anything. Just the being stern with the deadline and your goal. And then offer her a gift. I mean, one of the things is, I usually, when it's somebody really sharp or that I want to talk to, somebody like that, I would just offer them a free eyeshadow. Cost you $4, a free eyeshadow color, or you can offer, when it's somebody I really want to get in front of, I offer them a 50% off item because it doesn't cost me any money. But like for somebody who's like a one who's helping me with my training, I offer them a free eyeshadow, eye color.
Okay.
And I say, hey, pick out your color, let me know, and we'll get it sent out to you. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for helping me. I appreciate you. Okay. All right. Great question. What about you, Quinn? What would be your question?
Oh, there we go. Yay. So my question is more for like interviewing people that you're super familiar with. Like,
Okay.
so like getting them to actually focus. How does that work?
Do you mean having them take you seriously?
Well, yes. Well, because we all know maybe everyone doesn't know on this call, but I am quite dramatic sometimes. So when I am serious, getting other people who know me very well to take me serious can be a little hard.
So I was saying something like, listen, I'm a jokester. You know that I can have a dramatic flair. But the one thing I'm really serious about is growing my business right now because this is super important to me. And, I know that obviously I have that side of me. But for right now, this is super important to me. And I want you to know that I'm taking it seriously so that you can take it seriously too. And just saying that. This is my business and I haven't always, and I tell people this all the time, I haven't maybe always treated it like a business with you, but it is my business. And, this is really important to me. So just like laying that out there. I think that's a great question, by the way. That's a great question.
No, I run it like a business with it. It's just,
right.
There's no like interview questions, when you have to be serious and ask someone serious questions.
Yeah, it's harder when you know them. When it's people it's not always easy.
No.
But at the same time, like you can tell them, like, tell me something, with those people you can be even more honest. You can say, listen, Quinn, I know that this would be good for you. I can sit here and I can pretend like I'm just going to listen to you and give you all the facts, but I know why you would be good at this. I know that you would enjoy this. I know that you need this. So let's cut to the chase. Like, why is it that you would want to do this? What is it that you need more of right now? Like, just kind of like almost cutting through the bullshit a little bit. I mean, I don't want to, not to say a bad word, but just cutting through the garbage and saying, I know you, and I know you'd be good at this. I know you, and I know I want you on my team. I know you, and I know that you need this in your life because of X, Y, Z. But I want to know from you what you're looking for more of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it's just being more assertive and less passive.
It takes practice. Okay? But I will tell you this. You have to ask yourself, am I serving her by not telling her the truth? Am I serving her by not telling her I want her on my team? Am I serving her by shying away from things that I know could be really good for her. And I just always flip it in my mind in that way. And I tell myself, I have nothing to lose. Because even if she says no, it's okay. You're my friend. We're good.
Yeah.
No big deal. You know, we keep on. We move
Yeah.
forward.
Would be the first time she told me no.
Yeah, you know, and I'll tell you, I've had some really good clients that I thought would be really good at this say no to me. And I'm like, awesome. Will you promise to be my client forever and love me? You know, and they say, of course, you know, like they laugh. And so, you know, you can absolutely, yeah, yes, it is. It's just about being a little bit more assertive, for sure. Absolutely. I love that. Okay, what would be your question, Shannon?
I guess my question is, I wasn't very clear on if they aren't interested in the business part, what you would keep talking to them about. You said,
So at what point do you decipher that they're not interested?
yeah, but then you also said, well, you asked them if they'll still support you, and then you brought in about coming together for a free eyeshadow or a 50% off, or something like that. What? So are you just asking them to meet with
So
you?
if she tells me she's absolutely not interested, it's like at the very end, she says, listen, this is just not for me. I'm not going to do this. I say, oh my gosh, okay, great. At least now we both know, you know? And I'm like, and now you can be my happy customer. And, you know, with your permission, if something ever changes in your life, would you just do me the courtesy of coming back to me and letting me know?
Okay.
And I always leave the door open because I never know what's going to change in her life. I've had people who've told me no, and they tell me no, and they tell me no, and then years later they sign up. So, because something changed in their life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and then I'm like, and I appreciate you so much for coming out here. You ask great questions. You help me think through this. Like, this is really good training for me. And of course, I have your free gift for you. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you said yes. And, you know, to meet with me, it really helps me and supports me a lot. I really am grateful. And I just reiterate that, like how grateful I am. I reiterate that their answer does not affect the outcome or the fact that this was a good situation, because I learned just as much from the no interviews, and you need no interviews, because if you don't have no's, then you don't get yeses. So you need a lot of no's. Usually when you do interviews, 1 in 6 will say yes. When you get really good, 1 in 5 or 4 or 5. When you're a national like Ari, you know, 1 in 2 will say, you know, or 1 in 3. So when you're doing an interview, just know that you're going to get 5 no's for every yes, if that helps.
Okay, yeah, that does. Thank you.
All right, great. And what would be your biggest question, Jasmine?
Have you ever done an interview where it wasn't just with that woman? Like, you had her husband actually join her? That's my question.
I actually have. And let me tell you something, those are actually easier. Because usually if her husband's there, that means that she was going to need his buy-in anyway. And I actually love talking to men because I find that men get it almost. Women, we love to overanalyze things. I mean, it's who we are. So like the difference between men and women is just who we are. It is. Men do not. I'm thinking of this one interview in particular. I'll never forget. I was sitting at their house. I drove to their house at 9:00 at night, you guys, because it was the only time that he could meet. And I was like, okay, fine. I will be there at 9:00. And he was so intense. I didn't even get in. Like, I stood at their door and they sat on the stairs going up to their living room. That's where we did the interview, in their entryway. And then about 25 minutes into it, he said, why don't we go sit at the kitchen table? I was like, oh my God, finally, you know? But at the end of it, he was the one that was like, you need to do this, Holly. He's like, I don't know why you were even doubting, like, or questioning me, you know, you should. And so, I find that men are really good to have there if they're going to, because usually that woman was going to want his buy-in anyway. So then it's just an opportunity for you to get that buy-in from both of them at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Was there something more you were looking for or you were thinking of?
No, I was just curious.
Yeah. I actually really like it that way. So like if I find that somebody is going to want their husband's opinion, I'll be like, hey, bring your hubby along. I'd love to talk to him. I want to talk to him too. And it's interesting because men are usually like, why does she want to talk to me? Like, they're like, you have the confidence to talk to me too. They're impressed by that. They're like, wow, okay. So yeah, I love it. I believe in our opportunity. I don't mind talking to the husbands as well. So, all right, those are great questions. Well, I'm super excited. My challenge to you this week is I finally made the flyer for the Peek into Pink. So I'm going to do our first Peek into Pink call this Wednesday. And I'm going to do it at 8:30. So I'm going to post the flyer. I'm going to post it on our Facebook page. You can be booking people. It's a Zoom call, 8:30 on Wednesday. And my goal is for you to watch me do one of these calls and to book an interview for this week for yourself. So what does that sound like? What does that script sound like? Hey girl, I have a goal by next Saturday. My sales director has challenged me to hold one of these sharing appointments. It's super simple. All I have to do is buy you a cup of coffee. We get together. You ask me some questions about how our business opportunity works. I ask you some questions. It's like a fun little interview style, and you get a free gift just for helping me out. Basically, I just need to do one of these by next Saturday to count for my training. Is there any reason why you wouldn't be able to help me out? And so your goal is to practice and do this with somebody this week and to fill out one of these agendas, because the only way you get good at interviews is by holding interviews. Okay. All right. Well, I'm super excited. I know that our interviews are going to explode. I have horrible hiccups. Oh my goodness. Explode in the next few weeks and in the next months. And this is truly how you can move the needle, ladies, in your business and grow your team. It is time for growth. We are primed and ready for growth. And I want you to be a part of that. I'm super excited for you. Thank you for tuning in.